Hi, we're Ariel,
And Michelle,
and
and
we're
we're
the
the
Board
Board
Game
Game
Tutors.
Tutors.
Today, we're going to be discussing the Second Summoner Guild Dwarves, which is basically a standalone deck which you can add to the original Summoner Wars board game. Now, by standalone, I basically mean it's an extra army that you can add to your basic Summoner Wars armies. So you have one more army to choose from to fight battles with, basically. And the reason it's called the Second Summoner Guild Dwarfs faction, is the fact that there is already one Guild Dwarf faction in existence, and that's led by the summoner named Ulden. This second Guild Dwarf faction is led by a summoner named Bolvi. They're both independent armies, and they can work independently of each other, but now you have a choice. You can choose if you want to play with Ulden or if you want to play with Bolvi. So let's go ahead and get started on all of the unit cards for this faction.
All right, so here we have the starting setup for Bolvi's deck, which is how you set it up at the very beginning of the game.
Flip it over.
Here we can see all of Bolvi's event cards, which we're going to go over in our part 2 video. And then you can also see everything that you do in a normal turn on the right side. Now here's a wall from Bolvi's deck.
These will be important for Bolvi's deck primarily because you can do several special things with your walls, as you'll see in the next coming few minutes.
And here's Bolvi, the summoner of the Guild Dwarves. And as we said, he's the second summoner because there's one that already exists. His attack value is 2. He's a melee fighter, and he has 6 hit points. And his special ability is called Strength of the Stone. When attacking with Bolvi, you may place 1 wound marker on each wall that you control. If you do so, add 1 to Bolvi's attack value during that attack for each wall that you control. So depending on how many walls you have on the board, this is going to allow Bolvi to either roll 3 or 4 or 5 dice. So this is an option whenever Bolvi attacks, which is why it says when attacking with Bolvi, you may do this. So whenever you decide to use Strength of the Stone, it means you have to put a wound marker on each wall that you currently control. So if you have 1 on the board, you're going to put 1 wound on that one wall. If you have 2 walls, you can put a single wound on each of those walls. And if you had 3 walls, you could put a single wound on each of those 3 walls. And so that's what's going to determine how many dice Bolvi gets to roll during that attack.
So for this example, we put 1 wound on one wall because that's all we have on the board. He would get to roll 3 when he attacks this turn. And this happens during your attack phase. If we had a wall here and we put another wound on that wall, you can't distribute it any other way. Then you would have to, if you choose to do Strength of the Stone, you would have to put a wound on both walls that you have on the board. So I don't have a card out right now, but if this was a wall, you would have to put 1 on this wall, 1 on this wall. Same if you had 3, you would have to put it on all 3 walls. 1, 2, 3. And when you do that, you add 3 for each wound, so that becomes a 5 in an instance where there are 3 walls.
Yeah, so then Bolvi would get to roll 5 dice on that attack.
So that is his special ability, which is a pretty awesome ability. It obviously hurts you, but like Michelle's going to talk about in just a few minutes, there are ways to mitigate hurting your own walls.
Okay, so the first common unit we're going to talk about is called Oathsworn. It has a summon cost of 1, an attack value of 1, is a melee fighter, and has 2 hit points. And the Oathsworn's special ability is called Bravery. When this Oathsworn attacks a unit that has a summon cost of 2 or higher, add 1 to this Oathsworn's attack value during that attack. So he basically fights harder, I guess, when he's going up against a stronger enemy. Because if he's going against someone who had a 0 summon cost or a 1 summon cost, he rolls 1. That's his normal attack value, as you can see on the card. But then, if he's attacking someone who has a summon cost of 2 or higher, then he's going to roll 2 dice because he basically gets braver, as it says, bravery. He gets more brave when he attacks someone that was more expensive for your opponent to put on the board.
So you would look at the unit that you're attacking, you would check their summon cost, 2 or higher, then he gets 2 dice instead of just 1. Okay, 1 second, let me just move this off the board. Next common unit, actually the next 2 common units, we're going to go over them simultaneously, okay?
So we've got the Assault Tower and the Architect, and they kind of interact with each other. So the Assault Tower has a summon cost of 2, an attack value of 2, is ranged, and has 3 hit points. The Architect has a summon cost of 0, an attack value of 1, is a melee fighter, and has 1 hit point. And so now we're going to talk about the special abilities and how they relate to each other. So for the Assault Tower, it says built. This Assault Tower cannot be moved. When summoning this Assault Tower, it may be summoned adjacent to an Architect that you control. So if you have an Architect on the board, then you don't have to summon the Assault Tower next to a wall. You can instead summon it next to an Architect. It's as if the Architect just built the Assault Tower. So this can really give you a lot more options about where to place the Assault Towers, which is good because they also don't move, as the ability built says.
So for example, if you have any wall, the Assault Tower is a basic common unit of this army, so it can go adjacent to any wall when it is first summoned. Here, 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 or here. But if this Architect is on the board in the current location that it currently is in, you're not limited to just 4 spaces now. You can also put it here, here, and over there as well, because that is next to an Architect. For the purposes of this built special ability, you can treat the Architect as if it was a wall.
Mm-hmm.
And it makes sense thematically because the Architect has all these plans in his hands, so he knows how to build the Assault Tower wherever he is currently, which could also be on the enemy side of the board. So this does give you options in terms of where to place this Assault Tower and where you can summon it. Because like Michelle said, it is built, it cannot be moved, except under rare circumstances.
All right.
Okay.
And so you could, if you brought out that Architect and moved it across the board before you summoned the Assault Tower, then you could actually put the Assault Tower in enemy territory, which is pretty cool.
But the Architect only has 1 hit point, so there's not a good chance he'll survive.
Right.
So, and his special ability now?
It's called Repair. Instead of attacking with this Architect, you may remove 1 wound marker from an adjacent wall or an adjacent unit that has the built special ability. So the Architect can repair walls and he can repair towers simply by being next to them and then giving up an attack. In place of an attack, he can heal 1 wound.
So, for example, in this particular situation, the Architect can forfeit his attack. So that means you forfeit one of your 3 attacks that you normally do. So you only have 2 regular attacks left, or depending on the sequence, this might be your last attack. And he can heal this Assault Tower for 1 by forfeiting his attack. Or, if he was next to the wall, he could do the same thing. But whenever he forfeits his attack, it's only for 1. It's never for any more than that. You would have to have another Architect here to get rid of this last point of damage to the Assault Tower.
Right. So going back to Bolvi's special ability, you might have put wounds on your walls intentionally so that Bolvi could get a stronger attack in. You could then bring in an Architect and heal that wound.
You can bring an Architect next to it, pull this off. The wall is healed now. So, there are ways to mitigate damage done to your walls and mitigate damage done to your Assault Towers. And another important fact about the Assault Tower is the fact that it is a ranged unit. It is an immobile ranged unit, unless something special happens to it. So that means it can attack spaces within 3 spaces of orthogonal directions. So 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, because then the board ends, and 1 to the left.
Right.
So, they're just like any regular archer, except for the fact that they cannot move. And you can see they don't have legs or anything. So, yeah, obviously they can't move. All right, so those are the Architects and the Assault Towers. So, some of the time you're definitely going to be using your Architects to heal your towers, to heal your walls, and that will be rather crucial. And also, they are 0, which is a very helpful fact about Architects.
Now we're going to go over the champions. So first we have Dwarf. He has a summon cost of 5, an attack value of 2, is a melee fighter, and has 5 hit points. His ability is called Structural Analysis. When Dwarf attacks a wall card, add 2 to Dwarf's attack value during that attack. So basically he's stronger against walls. He actually rolls 4 dice. So normally he rolls 2 dice when he attacks a unit, but he rolls 4 when he attacks a wall.
So you can do a lot of damage with his huge mallet. And yeah, basically, he's essentially a champion engineer. If you're familiar at all with Olden's deck, engineers receive more dice in their attacks against walls, but he's a champion. He has higher hit points than regular engineers, and he has a humongous hammer. to deal them some extra hurt.
Mm-hmm.
So that is Dwarf. Next champion.
Ulfric has a summon cost of 6, an attack value of 2, is a ranged fighter, and has 6 hit points. His ability is Greater Stone Melding. When Ulfric is adjacent to a wall, Ulfric, that wall, and all friendly units adjacent to that wall only receive wound markers from die results of 4 or higher when an opponent rolls to attack them.
So in this example, let's make this a friendly wall again. Any person, including that wall that Ulfric is next to, he basically has Olden's special ability from the first Summoner Guild Dwarfs deck, except it's even stronger than Olden's special ability, as greater implies in the ability name. So basically, anybody who is next to the wall that Ulfric is next to, including himself, they all can only be hit by 4s, 5s, and 6s. So, in this example, if anyone tried to attack the assault tower, 3s do not count, 3s do not count against the wall, 3s do not count against the architect, and 3s do not count against him. So yeah, that is Ulfric's special ability, and he has a ranged attack of 2, which is a pretty decent attack overall.
All right.
Okay. And the last champion.
Grundor's Tower. So this is the champion tower, the champion of the towers.
As you can tell here, because yeah, it looks bigger. It has cannons as opposed to a trebuchet. Anyway, let's go ahead.
Okay, so Grundor's Tower costs 6 to summon, has an attack value of 2, is a ranged fighter, and has 8 hit points. And his special ability is also built, so it's actually the same as the Assault Towers. So it says Grundor's Tower cannot be moved. When summoning Grundor's Tower, it may be summoned adjacent to an architect that you control. So just like with the other Assault Towers, it can be summoned next to a wall, but it also can be summoned next to an architect instead.
So as you can see over here, if the architect is literally at your border or even beyond your border, if the architect is alive when it comes around to your turn for the next round of combat, then you can summon Grundor's Tower, if you have the magic, onto the enemy side of the battlefield, which is pretty hard to kill overall. He has 8 hit points, and yeah, it rolls 2 dice at range, which is never something fun for your enemy to see. So yeah, at this range, Grundor's Tower can actually reach the back row of the enemy side of the field.
Right.
So, yeah.
And of course, your opponent is going to work really hard to get rid of those architects, so you don't have the chance to summon so close to their summoner.
And obviously, they'll also find your architects very annoying because they will be healing your walls and healing your towers like crazy. And yeah, that's an effective use of your architects. So, in general, what you want to do with your units is to place an architect behind a tower, or in this sort of configuration, where people can't get to them on a turn. So that way they can just continuously heal the wall, which is pretty sturdy on its own, Grundor's Tower, which is really sturdy on its own, and the Assault Tower, which has 3 hit points, but unless they mount a complete offensive against that one tower, there's a decent chance it will survive to the next round. So those were all the common units, champion units, summoners, summoner, and walls, and other basic cards from the second Summoner Guild Dwarf set. On our next Part 2 Advanced Concepts video, we will be discussing, as you can see here, the rules for all the upgrade cards and for all the event cards that come up in this deck. So we hope you come back for Part 2 of Advanced Concepts. We hope you enjoyed this content. And if you enjoy this content, please give us a comment, give us a like, subscribe to our channel, The Board Game Tutors, on YouTube, and check out all of our videos on BoardGameGeek.com. And yeah, we look forward to hearing back from you, whether you have any clarifications, questions, comments, anything like that. We look forward to hearing from you.
All right, thanks so much for watching. See you in the next video.
All right, bye, everybody.
Bye.